Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ksenia and I make videos for people who, like myself, are going through the family immigration process. I'm not an immigration attorney. My videos are based on publicly available information, my own experience, and the experience of my subscribers. And the purpose of my channel is to give you guys the confidence to go through this process completely on your own. A lot of you reach out to me to get my input on bona fide marital evidence, but this may be especially difficult for those of you whose foreign national spouse still lives overseas and the petitioner resides in the United States. If you review the Form I-130 instructions, you will notice that USCIS requests proof of joint financial obligations like tax returns, health insurance, joint leases, mortgages, loans. But what can you do in a situation like yours where you still live apart, you just got married, and you don't really have that much joint financial evidence? The good news is that USCIS tends to be a little bit more lenient with those couples whose foreign national spouse resides overseas, as opposed to marriage-based green card cases for adjustment of status, where the foreign national spouse already lives in the United States. In that case, USCIS will be less forgiving if you don't have joint financial evidence. So in today's video, I wanted to provide you with somewhat of a list of bona fide marital evidence that you can use in your particular case. And remember, with any kind of evidence that you're providing, you are not only required to provide evidence after your marriage to the beneficiary, but also the evidence of your entire relationship being bona fide. So if you have evidence from before you got married, you can still provide that evidence to show that you and the beneficiary have known each other for a significant amount of time. Firstly, let's talk about tax returns. The U.S. income tax returns filed with your spouse is one of the most heavily weighted evidences if you were married to your spouse as of December 31st of the tax year that you're filing for, and you still choose to file as single. This may come off as a red flag to USCIS. You do have an option to include your foreign national spouse on your tax returns. Some tax preparers will tell you that it is impossible because your foreign national spouse resides overseas and they don't have a social security number or an ITIN, which is actually not true. It is possible to file your taxes as married separately or even married jointly, even if your spouse resides overseas. Unfortunately, for situations like these, TurboTax has created a specific step-by-step guide. The good news is that you can still prepare your tax returns electronically. Unfortunately, you will have to mail them in and proceed with the instructions that TurboTax provided for you. However, it is not impossible. And you're also allowed to amend your tax returns if you filed as single when you were in fact married. Let's talk about health insurance. So if you have health insurance through your employer, it may be worth speaking with your benefits department in figuring out how to add your spouse as a dependent on your health insurance. You will notice that a social security number is required in most cases that involve important documentation. However, there are ways to add your spouse as part of your health insurance plan without them having a social security number or an ITIN. In some cases, their passport number can be used as a placeholder number. There are qualifying life events, such as marriage, which will allow you to add your spouse to your health insurance within 60 days of getting married. Same applies to any foreign national children that you may have. Another way to show joint financial obligations is, for example, adding your spouse as an authorized user on your bank account. In some cases, you may not be able to open a bank account, a joint bank account, if your foreign national spouse lives overseas. There are banks, however, that are able to add your spouse as an authorized user. Another way to add your spouse as part of your bank account is to have them listed as a payable on death beneficiary, which means that in a case of emergency, such as the death of the bank account holder, the spouse will be able to receive a payout from that bank account. Another piece of evidence that may potentially show your bona fide marital relationship is if your foreign national spouse changes their last name on their foreign passport. There are certain qualifying life events, such as marriage and a change of name, which will allow someone to change their passport earlier than the expiration date. The next piece of evidence is showing monetary exchanges between the spouses. Maybe the petitioner is helping out your beneficiary back in their home country by helping them pay rent or pay for daily living expenses. So showing money transfers, for example, or showing exchanges of money via PayPal can also be a part of your bona fide marital evidence. Let's talk about travel arrangements and tickets. Providing a copy of your bookings, like flight bookings, travel arrangements that you have made together with your foreign national spouse. So anytime you book with Expedia, Booking.com, you will get an email confirmation. You can print out those email confirmations. And in addition, you can provide copies of actual boarding passes to show that you in fact have taking the trip together. Next, let's talk about photographs and third-party affidavits. I have an entire video talking about how to properly include photographic evidence of your marital relationship to your immigration file. And although photographic evidence is actually not the most heavily weighted evidence, it is still worth including it in your file. I find it silly when people recommend not sending photographs with your file because it is absolutely not true. You want to include as much marital evidence as humanly possible in your initial submission of your case in order for it to be not only processed faster, but having a greater chance of approval without an interview. When it comes to third-party affidavits, so for those of you who may not necessarily have a lot of additional evidence, third-party affidavits is a sworn affidavit from people that know you and your spouse who can testify to the fact that you are married legitimately and that you have known each other for a significant amount of time. I also have a video on that, and I also provide a sample third-party affidavit in that video. However, it can be included from literally anyone. The people writing the affidavit don't even have to speak English. They can write it in their native language, and you can take it to a translator. Including a large amount of third-party affidavits may help you, not just from one spouse's side, but from the other spouse's side, from family, from friends, co-workers, etc. You can also include screenshots of your text exchanges, call logs. For example, you can include a screenshot of your WhatsApp communication log. You're also allowed and encouraged, in my opinion, to include screenshots of any social media posts that you have made. Another piece of evidence you may choose to use is an affidavit on your own behalf, and your spouse may write one as well. So for example, you can write a letter addressed to USCIS or addressed to the officer reviewing your case, describing your relationship, describing how you and your spouse have met, how long you've known each other, and what your plans for the future are. But please remember that anything that is written in an affidavit like that must be true, as it becomes a permanent part of your immigration record. You can also include any foreign documents that you and your spouse may have. When USCIS looks at your case, that they don't only look for US-based documents. If you have filed any kind of financial documentation in another country, say for example the petitioner has lived overseas with the beneficiary and they do have joint financial obligations, you can include evidence of those as well. So for example, if you had a lease where both of your names are listed, even if it is an overseas lease and even if it is written in a different language, you can still provide a copy of that as well as a translation if it is in a foreign language. Same applies to a bank account. If you have a joint bank account overseas with both of your names listed on it, you can include a copy of that bank account statement. And again, if it's not in English, it should be translated to English, but you should always also be including a copy of the original. You can also create a will, for example, and include your foreign spouse's name on your will. You don't necessarily have to be old to create a will. Anyone can create a will as long as they're able to do that with an experienced attorney. If, for example, you have tried to add your spouse to any financial documentation and you weren't able to do that. However, you have proof of documentation showing that your marital status has changed, maybe for the purposes of your job or just for the purposes of records in general, then you can also include a copy of that or request a statement from your employer that confirms a change of your marital status. Having your foreign spouse listed as an emergency contact is another way to show your bona fide relationship, or although this kind of evidence is not the most heavily weighted evidence, especially if an emergency number requested typically should be a US-based number. However, any situation can happen. If you are able to do that, that is also a way to show a bona fide relationship. And finally, you really want to be creative with the kind of evidence that you are providing. There are a couple pieces of evidence that I have only personally witnessed a couple times. So in one of the cases, the US citizen petitioner actually went to graduate school overseas. Their foreign national spouse also attended the same university at the time that they met. So they were able to provide a copy of their student IDs demonstrating that they have attended the same school at the same time. So I hope that you found this video useful. Please let me know your ideas in the comments below. What is some pieces of evidence that you included in your case that I haven't mentioned in this video? Please subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Give it a thumbs up, and I hope to see you guys in my next videos. Bye!